Today, we're tackling a challenge many of you learning English face. That feeling, of nervousness when it's time to actually speak,
Mm-hmm.
even if you know a good number of words. I'm Ashish from Accent Choice, and our goal today is pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
really, to give you beginner English speakers some essential insights and practical tips, things to help you speak more naturally, maybe with more confidence,
Yeah, absolutely.
making that learning journey just easier and hopefully a lot more rewarding.
That's right, Ashish. It's a very, very common situation, isn't it?
Seems like it.
Beginners often find themselves in this kind of gap where they understand vocabulary, but then just hesitate to use it in a real conversation.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, what's truly interesting is that this anxiety, it often comes from a misunderstanding about what effective communication really looks like, at the beginning stages of learning English.
Okay, let's unpack this then. What is the core of speaking English, especially if you're just starting out?
Essentially, speaking English is about getting your message across. That's it.
Communication first.
Exactly. It's about sharing your thoughts, your ideas, your needs with someone else. It's less about having perfect grammar or a huge vocabulary, especially when you're a beginner. Think of it this way. The primary goal is just to connect and be understood. Simple as that.
It's almost like solving a problem, right? You just need to find a way to get to the solution, even if it's not the most elegant way at first.
Exactly. And one of the biggest obstacles for beginners is this desire for perfection right away. The fear of making mistakes can be so powerful. I mean, it literally stops them from speaking altogether sometimes.
Oh, really? Just stops them.
Yeah, they get stuck trying to build these grammatically flawless sentences with the absolute best word, and this actually freezes their ability to communicate. They just clam up.
Wow. So that urge to be perfect right out of the gate is actually holding them back.
Precisely. Focusing on the right aspects of learning from the start is what really speeds up your progress in speaking.
Right.
It's like learning to play a musical instrument. You don't aim for a perfect concerto in your first lesson, do you?
No, definitely not.
You focus on getting the basic notes right. Same idea.
That's a great way to put it. Now, English itself has a fascinating history, doesn't it? How can understanding that maybe help someone who's just starting?
Well, it offers a really valuable perspective, I think. English isn't some, unchanging, flawless thing. It grew from Old English, which had strong Germanic roots, and then it just absorbed words and structures from French, Latin, and honestly, tons of other languages over centuries.
Because it's a real mix.
It's a total mix, a linguistic melting pot. And that inherent flexibility, that can be really freeing for learners. There isn't always just one single correct way to express yourself.
That's actually a relief to hear. And it's definitely a global language now, no question.
It is. Millions upon millions of people worldwide learn and use English every single day. And what's fascinating is the vast majority of these individuals communicate effectively.
Even with mistakes.
Even if they sometimes make grammar mistakes or don't always use, super advanced vocabulary.
Yeah. Can you give us some real-world examples just to paint a picture?
Sure. Think about people working at international airports.
Okay.
They interact with travelers from all sorts of language backgrounds, right? Many with different levels of English. Yet, they manage to guide passengers, give information, solve problems successfully.
Right. They get the job done.
Exactly. Or consider people in the tourism industry. They communicate with visitors from all corners of the globe, even if their English isn't perfectly academic.
True.
Same holds true in many areas of international business. The main thing is understanding and being understood. That's the core.
Okay. So the key message here, really loud and clear, is that clear communication is way more important than perfect grammar when you're starting out.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get into some specific principles then. Things beginner English speakers should really focus on. What's the first one?
Okay, the first key principle builds directly on what we've just been discussing. Prioritize getting your message across over striving for perfection in your grammar or pronunciation. The initial goal isn't to speak flawlessly. It's just to make yourself understood.
And there's research backing this up, isn't there? It's not just anecdotal.
Oh, yeah. Studies in language acquisition have indicated that learners who focus on fluency, the ability to speak smoothly and just keep talking.
Keep the flow going.
Right. They tend to improve their overall speaking skills more quickly than those who are overly worried about grammatical correctness right from the very beginning.
Mm,
It's about building momentum and confidence first.
that's really encouraging. Do you have like a personal story or something that shows this in action?
I do, actually. Early in my own language learning journey, I remember trying to explain something, and I completely drew a blank on a specific word. Just gone.
Happens to us all.
Totally. But instead of panicking, I started using hand gestures,
Yeah.
describing the object in simpler terms.
Making it work.
Exactly. And you know what? The person I was talking to understood me perfectly.
Nice.
That experience, honestly, it gave me a huge confidence boost. It showed me that communication involves so much more than just perfect vocabulary. Sometimes, just being resourceful is more effective.
That's a fantastic takeaway, that resourcefulness, just being willing to try, can be more powerful than knowing every single word. Okay, what's the second key principle for beginners?
The second crucial principle is the significant impact of consistent daily practice.
Ah, consistency.
Yes, language experts almost universally agree on this. Regular, even short periods of engagement with the language each day are far more effective than, say, one long, infrequent study session.
Right, cramming doesn't really work for speaking.
Not for building fluency, no. Think of it like exercising a little bit regularly yields much better results than infrequent, intense workouts, especially when you're just starting.
So a little bit every day is really the key, even if it's just for, what, a few minutes?
Exactly. Consistent exposure and active use,
Oh.
even for short duration like 10 minutes, helps to solidify what you're learning and makes speaking feel more natural over time. It just builds the habit.
Do you have an example of how this daily practice thing can really make a difference for someone just starting out?
Yeah, I remember a student who was just beginning basic English conversation and felt very intimidated by the whole idea of speaking.
Understandable.
Very. So I suggested a simple exercise. Spend just 10 minutes every morning speaking aloud to their reflection in the mirror.
Talking to the mirror. Okay.
Yeah, sounds a bit weird, but initially they felt awkward, of course. But after about 3 months of doing this daily practice, they reported a really noticeable improvement
In what way?
in their ability to form basic sentences, and they just felt much more comfortable with the sound of their own voice speaking English. It built their confidence from the inside out.
That's incredible, just that small daily habit. Wow. Okay, what's the third key principle beginners should keep in mind?
The third really important principle is the value of learning phrases rather than just individual words.
Phrases, not words. Why?
Well, when you learn common phrases, you're not just memorizing vocabulary in isolation, you're acquiring these ready-made chunks of language.
Ah, like building blocks.
Exactly, like building blocks that already fit together. You can use them immediately in context.
Can you explain a bit more why learning phrases is so much more effective for actually speaking?
Certainly, when learners focus only on individual words, they often struggle with how to combine those words correctly to create sentences that sound, well, natural.
Yeah, the grammar gets tricky.
Right. And this can really overload their mental processing when they're trying to speak. They're constantly trying to recall individual words and then figure out the correct grammatical order. It's a lot to juggle.
I can see that.
But when you learn a phrase like, "How are you?" or "Can you help me?" you're learning a complete unit of meaning. You can use it instantly without having to construct it word by word.
Takes the pressure off.
Totally.
Yeah.
It reduces the mental effort needed for basic interactions and helps you sound much more natural much faster.
That makes perfect sense. It's like learning common responses in advance so you don't have to think about every single word in the moment. Got an example of someone who made that shift?
Yes, I worked with a learner who had built up a pretty large vocabulary, actually, just memorizing lists of words.
Classic method.
Classic. But they felt very hesitant and unnatural when they tried to speak. So we shifted their focus to learning common English phrases related to everyday situations.
Like what?
Oh, things like ordering food, asking for directions, making small talk. They started practicing these phrases, and honestly, they were amazed at how much easier and more fluid their speaking became.
Really?
Yeah, it was as if they suddenly had the tools they needed to actually use the vocabulary they already knew, but in a practical way.
All right, so we've covered some really vital insights here. Communication over perfection, daily practice, learning phrases. Now, what are some practical steps, things our listeners can do, like right now, to start putting this into action?
Okay, first actionable step. Set a daily goal of speaking English for at least 5 minutes. Seriously, just 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Doing what?
It truly doesn't matter if you're just talking to yourself. maybe describing what you're doing in English or naming objects around you. The key is just to get your mouth moving and become more comfortable producing English sounds.
That sounds really achievable. Like anyone could fit that in. What's another immediate action they can take?
Secondly, beginners should make a conscious effort to use simple, complete phrases rather than trying to construct complicated, grammatically perfect sentences right from the beginning.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. Instead of aiming for some complex sentence with multiple clauses, just focus on getting your message across, using shorter, well-formed phrases that you know are correct. It builds confidence and keeps the communication flowing.
Less chance of getting tangled up. And what's the third practical step you'd recommend?
The third suggestion is to actively look for opportunities to practice with real people. So maybe joining online English-speaking groups or finding a language exchange partner.
They're interactive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are many online platforms and communities out there where learners can connect with each other and practice speaking in a supportive, encouraging environment. It makes a huge difference.
Okay, so just to quickly summarize our key takeaways today, it's really about prioritizing getting your message across, communication, rather than chasing perfect grammar right away. Then there's consistent daily practice, even small chunks, incredibly powerful.
Crucial.
And focusing on learning useful phrases, not just single words, can make speaking feel much more natural and, frankly, a lot less intimidating.
Exactly. Those are the foundational elements, I think, that can really empower beginners to start speaking English with greater confidence and just more ease.
Fantastic. And if you, listening, have found this deep dive helpful, please do follow our show, maybe leave a review. It really does help other learners find us.
It really does.
And share it with anyone else who you know is on their English learning journey.
Absolutely. And, sharing what you've learned can also help solidify your own understanding. It's a win-win.
That's a great point. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure. Always good to talk about this.
Next time, we'll be diving into some of the common mistakes that beginners tend to make.
Ooh, good topic.
And more importantly, how you can easily correct them. So you definitely won't want to miss that one. In the meantime, you can stay connected and share your progress or ask any questions you have on Instagram, YouTube, or via email at Accent Choice.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
We really would. See you next time.